Before you make your next big decision, I want you to assess this. And this is what we're going to talk about. Super excited about this episode. Again, thank you for joining Empower with Nancy. There's something that I want you to think and just take a moment to think about today. And I have a feeling that this is going to hit some of you right where you are right now. Like you're really going to understand. You might think, like, Nancy, what are you like? How do you know? How do you know what I'm thinking? How do you know what I'm going through? Because maybe there's a decision like really sitting in front of you right now. Maybe it's weighing heavy on your heart, in your mind, your soul. You've been thinking about it every single day. Like you wake up thinking about it, you go to sleep thinking about it, and then you're overthinking about it, right? And talking yourself into it. And then all of a sudden, you're talking yourself right back out of it. Does this make sense? Does this sound like you? Maybe it's leaving your job. Maybe it's starting a business. Maybe it's ending a relationship. Having a conversation that you absolutely are trying to avoid, you keep avoiding it. Making a financial decision or making a decision to move, or maybe making a decision to finally say no, like you're setting your boundaries, or maybe finally saying yes, whatever it is. And you keep asking yourself the same questions over and over and over again. What if I make the wrong decision? What if it doesn't work out? What if I regret it? And all this stuff keeps playing in your head. But there's another question I don't think that we ask ourselves. What is the risk if I don't make the decision? Right? So think about I really want you to think about that, because what is truly the risk if you don't make that decision? Because something is still making a decision. Doing nothing is still a decision. Doing something is still a decision. So waiting is a decision. Staying where you are right now is a decision. And sometimes we become so focused on the risk of moving forward. What we completely ignore is the risk of staying exactly where we're at. Like you're stuck. You're not going or doing anything about it. And that's what I want to talk about really deep here today. Not taking reckless chances, right? No, it's not saying, you know what, I'm quitting my job tomorrow because I freaking had a bad Monday. It's Monday. I had a bad Monday or a bad week. Or maybe I got in a, you know, little confrontation or disagreement with somebody at work. Not making an emotional decision because someone on the maybe social media side told you, just go for it, right? And I say social media is because we're like constantly living in our phones, scrolling. And then we just start to listen and do things that other people are doing. I'm talking about something much more intentional. Before you make your next decision, I want you to do something most of us have probably never thought about doing. I want you to perform a risk assessment on yourself. Have you ever done one of those? I do them quite often. What do I mean by this? It could be in business, right? We assess risk all the time. I assess risk all the time in my business. Before we invest money, we look at it as a risk. Before companies make major decisions, they look at risk, right? Makes sense. But before somebody, let's say, before a lender approves for a loan, it may be a risk. Before you go and purchase a car, maybe it's an expensive car, a little over your budget, it's a risk. We ask, what would go wrong? What is the exposure for me taking this risk? And what is the outcome overall, the probability of making this risk? And what are the warning signs? What information are you missing? And we can handle the outcome if things don't go as planned. But it isn't interesting. We can be incredibly analytical when we, excuse me, when we are evaluating everything around us, and incredibly emotional when we're evaluating our own lives. We don't always look at facts. We look at fear. That's the first thing we think of is we look at fear. We look at our past and then we live in our past. We don't know how to move forward. We look at what's happening. What happened the last time I took a risk? What did that do? And then you feel scarred because you don't want to make that risk again. We look at what other people might think. Who cares what other people might think? And sometimes we call that being extremely careful. I'm not going to take that risk. I got to be careful because I can't take that chance. But sometimes it's fear dressed up as logic. So I want to give you a different way of looking at your next big decision for a second. Take yourself through a personal risk assessment. And the first question is probably the most important question. Question 1, what am I actually afraid of? Not the answer you give everybody else, right? Like this is truly your answer, the real answer. Let's say that you've been thinking about changing careers. You might say, well, I can't leave. I have too much invested here. Okay, but is that really the decision? Or did you just talk yourself out of that? What is your heart telling you? Are you afraid you won't be successful somewhere else? Absolutely not. That should not be your first thought. Maybe you're saying, I worked so hard. I built this company. I've been with this company for 7, 10, 12, 15 years. I work so hard, but I'm exhausted. I'm burnt out. I don't like my boss. I don't like the people. I feel used, yada, 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 yada. So what do? You complain about it, but you don't do anything about it. Are you afraid you're too old to start over? Because I get that a lot with my clients. Are you afraid that you'll make less money somewhere else? Or are you afraid that you'll disappoint someone? Are you afraid that you'll leave and realize that you weren't valuable as you thought you were? Those are very different risks. And you can't properly evaluate a decision until you're willing to identify what you're actually afraid of. Nobody else telling you something. It's what are you afraid of? So ask yourself, what am I really afraid will happen? And then take it one step further. How likely is that actually going to happen? If I constantly put it in my head that I'm going to fail, I'm not going to like this other job, I'm not going to like my boss, I'm not going to like what I'm doing, you bet you're going to walk in there with chaos. Because remember, I always say thoughts become things. What you think will persist. Because our minds are really good at taking the possibility and turning it into a certainty. I might fail because I'm going to fail. They might not understand because everyone is going to judge me. I might lose money because I'm going to lose everything. But wait a minute, is that the fact or is that the fear? These are the two different things. These are stories that you're telling yourself, making up these stories, these fiction stories that it is just not the reality. Bottom line. Question number 2. What do I know and what am I assuming? This one is super important because we make so many decisions based on assumptions. I know that they won't give me that opportunity. I just know it. Well, did you ask? No. Then you don't know, right? I would never make money doing that one thing. Absolutely will not make money. Well, have you researched it? No. Well, then you don't know, right? Does this all make sense? Or my family would never support me doing that. Well, have you had the conversations with your family? Nope. Then you don't know. Do you see what's happening here? We create an entire outcome in our minds before we collect the information. And then we make a decision based on the outcome that hasn't even happened. Like, come on. So when you're doing your personal risk assessment, make like 2 columns if you need to. But to me, I think 2 columns based off what everything I'm telling you. The first column is what do I know? And then the second column is what am I assuming? You may be surprised how much of your fear lives in the second column. That second column is assuming column, right? Number 3 is what is the worst realistic outcome? Notice I said realistic. What is the realistic outcome? Not the catastrophic. It is absolutely because some of us can go from, what if I start this business and it doesn't work? And then all of a sudden, 2, I've lost everything. I live in my car. Nobody will never hire me again. And my entire life will be ruined. Okay, well, let's come back for a second. Come back. What is the realistic worst case scenario here? Maybe you start something and it doesn't grow as quickly as you hoped. Maybe you have to change a plan. Maybe you lose a little bit of money. Maybe you have to go back to work. These are the risks that you're taking, but it's not the end of the world. Maybe someone tells you no on something. Maybe it's a client. Maybe you're trying to sell something. Maybe you're trying to do something or get someone, to, maybe be on your podcast or getting a client that you really been trying to work hard to get. Maybe you feel embarrassed. Maybe the relationship doesn't work. Maybe you make the move and realize it wasn't right for you. None of these would necessarily be easy. But here's the next question. Would you be able to recover from it? That's important because risk isn't just about what would go wrong. It's also about your ability to respond if it does. And I think sometimes we forget how resourceful we actually are. Sorry, I have hiccups. You're probably already survived things that you never thought that you would be able to handle. You figured out things before you thought you could. You adjusted, you rebuilt, you learned. You learned from those challenges that became opportunities. Maybe you've changed the direction. So don't assess Don't assess risk based only on what could happen. Could have, should have, would have. Like, no. Assess it based on who you are capable of becoming if it does. That is huge. That is the difference. Don't go into it fearing that you're going to fail or lose or hurt somebody's feelings or, thinking you made the wrong move. Question number 4, what does the risk of doing nothing? What is the risk of doing nothing? This is the part that I really want you to really sit with, because most people only evaluate one side. What's the risk if I leave? What's the risk if I start? What's the risk if I invest? What's the risk if I speak up? And what is the risk if I change? Okay, great. Fair question. It's totally fair. I've been there. But let's flip everything. What's the risk if I stay? What's the risk if I never start? What's the risk if I keep waiting? Keep putting this beautiful thing or new chapter and this change that I want to do, and you keep putting it on the back burner. What's the risk if I never say what needs to be said? What's the risk if nothing changes? Now, we're looking at the entire direction, right? Because staying in the situation that isn't working has to cost you. Maybe it costs you financially. Maybe it costs you in confidence. Maybe it's peace. Maybe it's your marriage. Maybe it's time that you need to spend more time with your family. Maybe it's your health. You need to start eating healthier, getting some exercise, do some walking, whatever that is. Maybe it's another 5 years spent doing something you knew wasn't right for you, but you're too comfortable, and you have to get uncomfortable to get comfortable and take that calculated risk. And time is one risk we don't talk about enough. Time. You know as well as I do, time flies. Money is just energy. It comes in and it goes out. Money can sometimes be earned back. It always is earned back. Businesses can be rebuilt. Careers can change. Plans can adjust. Doesn't mean it's bad. Why fear and worry? Because a lot of these things in our lives, we have control over us. We have control the way we want to live, the things that we want to do, the people surrounding who's in our circle, the people we hang out with. You make all those decisions, nobody else but yourself. There's things that we can't control, but you can't live in the place of fear. But you cannot recover the years that you spent waiting for just that perfect time to make a decision you already knew that you needed to make like 5 years ago. And I'm not telling you to rush. By all means, no. What I'm really getting here is telling you to include the cost of waiting in your assessment. What is it going to cost me to wait? And I really want you to sit with that. This self-assessment will change your life if you're willing to. Number 5, am I making this decision for a person I am today or for the person I'm trying to become? This one is completely uncomfortable because sometimes the decision that feels safest for who you are today is the very decision keeping you from becoming who you want to be. So if you want to become a leader, there are conversations you're going to have, and you're going to learn from those conversations. If you want to build a business, there are risks that you're going to have to learn to evaluate. If you want financial freedom, there are behaviors that you're going to have to change. This one's hard though, right? The financial freedom. Like you just want to go and just buy and do, and don't have the budget. It's hard sometimes. But if you want different relationships, there are boundaries you may have to establish. And boundaries are okay. If you want a different life, there are decisions that your current comfort zone is probably not going to like. But you make that decision. So I want you to ask yourself, I am protecting my future, or am I protecting me? Right? What is it that you're protecting? I hope that this episode really, really resonated with you to do this self-assessment. Replay and replay this episode as many times as you need to, because I really want you to listen to it. I want you to sit with it. I want you to react and do something about it without the fear. Act as though any change that you want to make has done. It's already done and it is in existence. And you're not going into it fearing and worrying a failure, making a mistake, or upsetting somebody, right? You are doing this for yourself. So don't go into a change or a new chapter of your life worrying about failing. Because remember, thoughts become things. What you persist exists. I hope you like this episode. Please share it with a friend. I'm continuing to grow my podcast. I love all of my beautiful new followers that are following me. I really, 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 really appreciate all of my existing listeners for the last few years, all my new listeners. I really, truly, truly, to my heart, appreciate everyone. And always remember that you have full control of the will. With much love and hugs, Nancy.